Hello everybody, welcome to yet another video review. And today I'm talking about a movie, so it's a movie review. The movie I'm talking about today is the theatrical version of SCUM. That was released back in 1979. Now, this movie is actually based upon the script of a BBC play. Feature-length play that was aired in 1977. Released the play, or aired it on BBC, and it was done by Ray Minston, and he was the guy that was the person that came up with the original concept. The original 1977 version starred Ray Winston and Phil Daniels. They both starred in this, and they also went on to star in the theatrical version later on. Now, what's interesting about the original version is it was actually banned for 14 years. It aired as it was supposed to, but because it was met by quite a lot of backlash, the censors had it taken down because of how violent and how it depicted certain things within the theme of the movie. The censors thought it was a bit too much for TV and they had it pulled. Then 2 years later, a director known as Alan Clark, along with one of the main writers, decided to take the script from the original film, and in 1979 they released a theatrical version, again with Ray Winston and Phil Daniels within the film cast roster. And basically what this movie is talking about is about Borstalls back in the 70s, probably 60s and 70s, of how the staff treated the inmates. Even though they were in there for terrible things, but yet the staff treated them like shit. And there was a lot of racial stuff that must have happened, because that's what this movie depicts. So Ray Winston plays the main character, as I said a moment ago, and he is actually transferred from a different prison, or a different Borstal, sorry. Apparently, you don't see it happen, but what he's supposed to have done is he's supposed to have hit one of the wardens, that is apparently a bit much more of a tougher Borstal. You know, they don't take any crap. So Ray Winston's character is transferred to this Borstal, and he is subjected to, from as soon as he opens the door, subjected to some of the most incredibly intimidating, in-your-face behaviour from the wardens. Obviously, he funked a warden in a fellow Borstal, so they're not going to stand for his crap. And he's a bit notorious as well, his character. Apparently has a bit of a reputation. So yeah, that's pretty much what happens. And then he kind of tries to settle in this new Borstal. There's a few, let's just put it this way, how it's done is, it's obviously very depressing. How it comes over that the what's his name again? Alan Clark. Alan Clark, he does a fantastic job of pretty much depicting how the inmates communicated with one another. You had some that were recluses, that found it very difficult to communicate with others, and they kept themselves to themselves. Then you had a group of lads. One of them is actually Phil Daniels' character. There's 3 of them, and they are essentially the daddy and his cronies. And they're the ones that run that specific wing that these lads are on. Well, run, they kind of do stuff on the sly to, earn a little bit of money, and they kind of do dealing with other wings and things like that, which does happen in prison, or did in them days anyway. Ray Winston being the main character, having a bit of a reputation himself, he brings, as the film progresses, he brings it upon himself to kind of get his own back on the the wardens in a very creative and very brutal way. He is subjected to, throughout the whole movie, to solitary confinement, to being physically beaten to hell. Among all that, he actually stands up for the ones that are a bit weaker than himself, that are weaker. What I mean by weaker is mentally in a very weak, very vulnerable and weak state because of how they've been subjected to a lot of the problems with the wardens and how some of the inmates have been bullying them. This movie also depicts bullying within the system, both from the inmates and also from the wardens, and the repercussions of that, because you actually see a suicide attempt, an actual successful suicide. That sounds a bit wrong to say, but yeah, basically there's a suicide within this film after he is raped by 3 men, or 3 young lads. So you see a lad being raped, you see him take his own life, you see and hear the wardens having racial tendencies towards the black inmates. It is a very horrible movie. It has very horrible themes, but it portrays them in a very, very good, very well. It's a very depressing movie. It's no skipping around the rose bed, the roses or whatever. But that's what I love about it. It doesn't shy away from telling a true story of how it was within the Borstal system in those days. It doesn't shy away from that many young men took their own lives. It's a very powerful movie, and it doesn't really give up. There's very little respites in between. You've got the drama, you've got the interaction with like the psychologist or the counsellor. You've got a woman that goes in as a counsellor, and they do group sessions and things like that. So it's kind of like also like the head wardens or the people that are in charge of the education side, because they do have like tutoring and education to a point, and it's all kind of pretty much. It just feels like like a proper Borstal system. They depicted it so well that it is very, very close to what it would have been like. But yeah, it's a brilliant movie. Ray Winston is amazing. It has probably one of the best lines, probably one of the most memorable lines in movies, when Ray Winston's character goes to the daddy. Goes to Phil Daniels' character. Phil Daniels' character, which is one of the cronies of the main lads that kind of run it, if you know what I mean. And he gets 2 pool balls, puts them in a sock, and whacks right, and pretty much nearly breaks his jaw. This other lad. That sends a signal, and then he goes to the guy that is apparently the daddy, which is kind of the slang thing for the guy in charge. So he goes to him, and he pretty much beats the living crap out of him as well. And Ray Winston's character becomes the daddy of A-Wing, because that's the wing that they are in. So he becomes the daddy, and he becomes notorious, and he becomes respected because he does it in the right way to protect those that are more vulnerable, rather than feeding off the fear of other inmates, which was what the other group of lads were doing. He did it in the more, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but he did it in a more righteous way. Ray Winston's character did it in a more righteous way. He did it, and he earned the respect of the inmates, and he run the kind of like the underground of the wing in a more productive manner, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's a brilliant movie. I recommend to pick up this box set that I've been clutching for the entirety of it. So this is the 2-disc limited collector's edition that was released back in 2005. Now, there's probably other versions of this since then, but I've had this for years. I remember watching the theatrical movie on TV for a couple of times before I bought it myself. It is just a brilliantly depicted movie, depicts the theme and depicts life within the whole Borstal system back in the 1970s or whatever. This movie, I believe, was actually part of the restructuring system, because when I've read the back of this, the Borstal system was actually completely rechanged. It was restructured, which allowed the original play version, which is this movie is based upon, or based upon the screenplay for, or the script. The script of, should I sort of say. So they allow, once the structure had been changed and the restructure of the Borstal system happened, that then allowed the original BBC version, the BBC play version, to then air on TV after 14 years. So it just goes to show you that, in a way, you could say this movie kind of served as a bit of a campaign in a way to try and, because that's the whole idea of the original play and also this version, is to kind of educate people of what it was like back then. And a lot of it went completely undetected for a long time, or was known about but just wasn't acted upon. And then when, the 1977, when the original play aired but then it was pulled because of how violent it was, then Alan Clark decided to make a theatrical version because really it was true, it had to be told. This box set, get the 2-disc special edition that has the unseen version, or the original unseen version, which is essentially the BBC movie, the BBC play version, and then you've got the notorious cinema version. Thank you very much for watching this, my friends. Please remember to subscribe, comment and rate. Please slam or hit that bell button for more notifications of my future uploads. And until next time, you've been awesome. I've been John. And this has been SCUM, my review on SCUM. And thank you for watching. Peace. See you soon.